Hi, this is Ana Dominguez, your language coach, and in today's video, I'm going to talk about dyslexia in teens. Signs that your kid has dyslexia. As you can see, as a teacher with more than 15 years, accompany teenagers, adults to pass official exams, I have met many students and coachee people, that they had difficulties with the language, with writing, with reading, with memorizing things, with the spelling. We all have difficulties, especially in a second language. But when you have these difficulties as well in your mother language, it's inevitable that you end up having it as well, these problems in the second language. So today I'm going to explain the different signs that you can find in your kid. So let's start with this. Common warning signs of dyslexia in teens. Are you concerned because your teen is struggling with academic learning in school? Have you noticed any social awkwardness? Awkwardness es como rareza, ¿no? Extrañeza o algo raro. Awkwardness. Or a tendency to keep a distance from peers. The peers son sus colegas de la misma clase, ¿no? De sus amigos. So if he's having social distance as well, the tendency to have this distance from peers, no social distance, I mean the COVID one, no, it's the one that you put because you don't want to see others, because you feel awkward with your feelings and also with others' feelings. Does lack of motivation seem to be a problem? Do you worry about whether low self-esteem is taking the joy out of learning? Key word, low self-esteem. O sea, autoestima, ¿no? El amor propio, o eso, la autoestima. This is something essential, not only for them, for everybody, but especially these people that are starting to feel that they are not able to cope with the difficulties that this dyslexia is creating them in the process of learning. So these may all be signs of a not yet identified learning disability. Learning disability. Esto para los que sois profesores, estáis preparando la habilitación lingüística, learning disability, okay? Such as dyslexia. Look over the following checklist of common warning signs of dyslexia in teens. For at least the past 6 months, my teens has had trouble, y ahora os voy a decir. So for at least a period of time, you have been the witness of these troubles that I'm going to say. I'm going to tell each part, which the first one is, I'm going to tell you the different categories, we could say. The first category is the language itself, and I will read out all of it. The second will be reading, the third is writing, the fourth is social emotional, and then the fifth is other areas where you can see that your kid is having troubles with. Language. In the picture beside, I had just illustrated with this picture because they are having a conversation, and one of them is speaking and the other is listening, right? And I'm going to tell you, before I start with the language, that the language is a tool. Every language is a tool. Like the piano is an instrument, language is an instrument. It's an instrument of what? Of communicating and expressing how you feel, what you think, and also to help others, right? Because you can help a lot with your words. So having said this, that any language is a tool, we are not going to get mad about being fantastic at writing and reading and speaking. No, I'm trying to tell you that that language is a tool, and most of us, we use it, we commit mistakes, but these people, the people that have dyslexia, the teens that have dyslexia, are having special difficulties that we can say that they are having dyslexia. Okay, so if you are having troubles with the second language or with your mother language, that's absolutely normal. But as well, if you are having more problems in the spelling and in the things that I'm going to tell you, is because you have dyslexia. And that is a learning disability, because this affects more to the process of learning. Speaking fluently, not haltingly. So if you are haltingly means doubting, stopping yourself. So you stop, you cut the fluency, and precisely con precisión, no? Using a rich vocabulary. If you are, I think we all are a little bit dyslexic in this sense, right? Because we can have this in any moment, especially if we are feeling with a lot of pressure. But if you are having this most of the time in any context where you have to communicate, then you have dyslexia. That's what they say. And I want to emphasize that dyslexia, what requires is more attention from your side. Yes, and you can overcome this situation if you put more attention on how you write, how you read, and if you spot how your brain is tricking you. Because at the end, dyslexia is about your brain is tricking you, is swapping the letters, is making you think things that are not there, so you read something that is not actually written, because you are swapping the letters, right? For example, in a language, I'm going to continue reading. I don't want to distract you more with my speaking. So the language, speaking fluently, not haltingly, and precisely, using a rich vocabulary, understanding instructions, directions, using correct grammar and vocabulary, understanding the relationship between speaker and listener, understanding the relationship between the speaker and listener, participating in conversation appropriately. Appropriately. That's difficult, as well as haltingly. Actually, the G is not pronounced. And so we keep going with staying on topic and getting to the point. So if you have a tendency to not being on the topic of the conversation and not entering into the detail and going to the point, then you have this also called dyslexia. Gets bogged down in details, so you get into details. I actually can feel that in many occasions I can be a dyslexic person. And I don't have any troubles telling you, because I can get bogged down in details a lot. Summarizing a story. If you have troubles with summarizing stories, then have in mind this: distinguishing between words that look or sound similar. And this is very often happening in one of my coaching people that I have noticed that she is having dyslexia. She's swapping she's having these problems with the sound, and you can see it that when the words look similar and the sound is similar, then she's having troubles with this a lot. Understanding non-literal language such as idioms and jokes. Yeah, so maybe they are having troubles also with the symbolic language, with metaphors, and also the jokes are using all the time metaphors and symbols. So idioms as well. Idioms, remember, are like fixed expressions, or what we call refranes. So these kind of, we could say, more poetic language. The tendency is not to understand them properly, or not fully. And then we continue with the reading. They say reading with the speed and accuracy for one's expected grade level. So if you are a teenager that is not having the same, we could say, level as your peers at a school, we are all different, I know that, but more or less, if you're way behind the group, then maybe it's because you have this problem. Reading aloud. If you're having problems when you are reading out loud or reading aloud, this is another sign. Reading without losing one's place or substituting, skipping over words. Yeah, so without losing one's place. So so imagine that she or he is changing the line or is substituting words, this is also very frequently happening in the lessons with the dyslexic person that I am accompanying these days, and skipping also words. So suddenly she just jumped completely and skipped the word or one sound or one little word that was in the middle of the line or the sentence. Recognizing sight words. Yeah, so sight words, when you see the word and you don't recognize it just at one side. Using word analysis, not guessing, to read, learn, and familiar words. Using word analysis is when they are using, for example, their logic, understanding the root of the word, using the lexeme, ¿no? El lexema que diríamos nosotros, ¿no? Lexeme or root, and then they are, for example, not able to do the identification of the prefixes and suffixes, for example. So they don't get the we could say the different blocks of the morphology of a language. No? In this case, in English, ing, ed, prefixes would be there, re or an, or there are many. So these, if they are having troubles with this, we need to emphasize that. We need to work with them, helping them to identify the patterns a lot. Because their tendency is to guess the meaning, not by identifying the logical meaning of the root, or the logic, the logical thinking, the reasoning. They don't reason. They don't give reasoning as much as guessing. They guess more than reason. Finding enjoyment and confidence in reading. Yeah, well, they don't usually like reading. Well, these days, unfortunately, many people don't like reading. At least this is what I have found. They read because they are forced to, but very, very few people these days can say openly that they love reading poetry, they love, reading theater, they love reading novels. I mean, they read because they have to, but I don't find very common especially in teenagers, the habit of reading. And obviously dyslexic people will have a tendency to skip this activity, because it's not their strength. So this is very logical that they don't end up taking a book. But if we help them to find the pleasure of reading a story and understanding that they can find their way to cope with their difficulties and to find strategies that make them just aware of their need. Because the problem with dyslexic people is that they don't know they are dyslexic. Even their parents, they don't know it. Writing, spelling accurately and consistently. Very common. Proofreading and editing written work, even if they have written something and you accompany them to see what they have read and you say, there is something wrong there. Can you tell me where have you done the mistake? They have difficulties in finding their own mistakes. because they are not aware of their mistakes. So if you are accompanying these dyslexic people, if you are the mother or the father, my recommendation is make a list of common mistakes. So they will, whenever they have to edit or proofread, when they do the proofreading or the editing of the written work, they will be able to go directly to the places where they know they can fail, they can have a mistake or a slip. Expressing ideas in a logical, preparing an outline for written work. That's another thing. They have difficulties in separating in paragraphs and giving the very well organized structure to their ideas. Expressing ideas in a logical, organized way, we have already said this, because they have problems with reasoning. So at the end, using and expressing ideas is also because of their lack of confidence. But as well because they feel they are not right, most of the time. If they are feeling that they are bad at the school, so this is an accumulative if they are accumulating failure after failure at a school, for example, if they had to make a presentation and then later they had the results of any writing exercise, and they are all the time collecting failures or mistakes, at the end these people are going to have a lot of problems with self-esteem. I mean, we all are having problems with spelling and with, especially in a second language. But if you are also having this in your own mother language, it's logical that they feel sometimes overwhelmed with these problems. And then fully developing ideas in written work. Yeah, they don't enter in detail. This is another thing. They get the exercise done. They usually get the exercise done, but they don't enter into detail. They are a little bit, to our eyes, it can feel that they are lazy, but they are not lazy. These people usually work, but when they present their work, it's not enough. They don't get it. They didn't really complete it. Fine. And the last part is social, emotional, and others. I'm going to read them and then I'm going to comment. Picking up on other people's mood and feelings. So they are not able to read how others are feeling. Yes? So they are sometimes also having troubles with understanding their own feelings, understanding and responding appropriately to teasing. Teasing es lo que se hacen, ¿no? Los niños en el colegio y tal. Que si, ¿no? Como encordiar, así meterse unos con otros, hacer un poco de rabiar, ¿no? Entonces, they understand and respond appropriately to teasing. Making and keeping friends. If they are having problems with this, with social environment, is always very problematic. That might be also another sign that your kid is having dyslexia. Setting realistic goals for social relationships. Yeah, and I keep reading and then later I comment. Dealing with group pressure and embarrassment and unexpected changes. Dealing with group pressure and embarrassment and unexpected challenges. Yeah, so they have problems with the pressure of the group, with being embarrassed. So as I told you, if they don't feel enough, if they feel that they are not confident enough, they are going to feel embarrassed, and then they also will have problems with unexpected changes because they get fixed in routines that they feel more secure or more confident. So at the end, if you change completely something in their habits, they might feel a little bit fearful. Having a realistic sense of his or her social strengths and weaknesses. A realistic sense of his or her social strengths and weaknesses, yes. And being motivated and confident about learning and relationships, yeah. This can be summarized in 2 ways of acting as a dyslexic person. I'm just gonna give you 2. I have noticed that some of these kids when they are in a group, they are survivors. What I mean is that they can, some of them, they hide themselves and they get kind of dissolved in the group, so they don't call the attention of the teacher. They pass, unnoticed, we could say. The other characteristic or the other opposite reaction of people that are having these problems is the opposite, is when they call the attention of the teacher, call the attention of the rest of the group. They are all the time asking for attention, but in a very bad way. They are troublemakers. These kids, they can interrupt the process of learning from other kids because they are all the time speaking out loud, making noises with their own material at the school. So I have noticed that in the school. It's still happening in one of my school, actually, where I teach and accompany kids to pass official exams. And I had to, really say to the coordinator, I think these kids needs to be in a private lesson because they interrupt others. And they also are having their own problem. One of them, for example, in the class, I noticed that when you ask him to write, something, it writes with capital letters, all of it. And you know that in official exams, you can't write everything in capital letters because you need to differentiate between capital and lower cases. So in this case, the teacher that is accompanying these students, especially if they are having dyslexia and plus they are behaving badly at a school, I would say that if the parents can, they should afford a private teacher, especially if they are in an extracurricular lesson, because they are not going to get the attention they need in a group. And this is like that. So these are the two attitudes that I have seen. They pass unnoticed, or they show off, and they are all the time calling the attention. But it's a lack of confidence. It's a lack of feeling confident and feeling that they are able to do it right. So if they can't do it right, what they do is they say, okay, fine, I stop working and I start making trouble here in the class. Unfortunately, this is not actually happening in my private lessons. Usually in my private lessons, I don't have much troubles with this because I get their attention and I give them my attention. And this is very well organized and very we could say bespoke. It's a bespoke program. So bespoke means adapted, right? So it's private, and then the kid gets my attention and I can accompany them, and they get better results at the end because they understand what's going on in their learning process. And they can have the impact that I usually get, that the results we could say that I get from these kids when they are being accompanied by me at least minimum one academic year, is that they have a very positive change and impact in other subjects, because we are helping them to develop and build better the tool of learning, which is the language. The tool of language, so the tool of learning. And I always say languages are tools, which means that we are helping them to fix that tool, to keep it updated, to understand how it works on them and find their own voice. It doesn't matter if it's in Spanish or in English. At the end of the day, it's about you speaking to others, being able to communicate yourself in good terms, not only writing, but also speaking. And when you are learning, because this is a feedback, you are receiving maybe an email, or sometimes you are also receiving some book, and then you are, reading this information, and you are able to receive. These are the two different dynamics in the 4 or 5, at least minimum 4 skills to develop in a language. The 5th, I usually call it grammar, or I call it also the study. And others, they say organizing and managing time. If they have trouble, teenager students, any teenager will have troubles with this, with managing time, because they are in the process of managing their own time. But it's true that if they are having, this is another sign that you could notice in your teenager. The navigating space and directions. Well, this is about knowing left from right. And well, this actually can have an impact in reading the time in the typical watch, right? So if they are having troubles with differentiating left and right and where the hands of the watch are, you can also notice if they are having troubles with this, is probably because of their dyslexia. Reading charts and maps, obviously. Performing consistently from day to day. Performing consistently means that they constantly work. They have the habit of studying, they have the habit of reading, they have the habit of doing exercises and homework. But I have to say here that not all of them, especially if they are being accompanied already, if they are being accompanied and they are not doing this, is because the person that is accompanying them is not asking them to perform it. Because if you ask them, they usually give it to you. My experience is that they work in their own way, which is very shallow. I told you already, they don't enter into details. But if you keep them something light that they can perfectly perform, they will feel good. And this is what we need to make them feel good to keep the habit. Yes, and then when they start, for example, ask them to record a page of a book, ask them to describe a picture and send you a video or send you an audio. If you keep doing things that are very light and it's interesting also for them, they will do it. They might not enter in details, but they do it. Applying skills learned in one situation to another situation, learning and mastering new games and puzzles. This is similar, yes, at the end. They are having troubles maybe understanding the rules of a new board game, for example, if they are playing with their cousins or with their classmates. So remember, they don't really like unexpected changes, and so they don't really fancy that you change the rules of a game, yeah? Memorizing, they are having troubles with memorizing. I think we all these days are having troubles with this because our attention span is being less and less, is shortened. And yeah, I think we are also asking them a lot of things, I have to say, in this teenage age. I think that our students, they have to deal with Spanish, English, French, German, Italian, I mean, violin, piano. There are a lot of things that they have to do. So my recommendation is keep it simple, especially if they have dyslexia. Help them with their mother language. And if you have, in my case, I can accompany Spanish. So because I teach also Spanish at the schools. And I have been also teaching Spanish abroad in Dublin and London. But these days I'm teaching only English online. But if you have someone like me or another teacher that can help them with one of the language, help them, because at the end, remember, it's about how they learn, how they use the language, how they use the tool. It's not about the tool, it's about how they learn it and how they communicate themselves with the tool, with the language, with the instrument. And that's it. I think with this we have finished. I don't want to extend more this video. If you find my information interesting, if you find someone, and then if you know someone that is having this problem with dyslexia, please send them my video, subscribe to my channel, and comment below. Have a good week. Bye.